Hi, welcome to Candela. In today's lecture, we shall discuss the Western Sahara conflict. This was a topic which was in news recently. So why was it in news? The USA President Donald Trump signed a proclamation recognizing the Moroccan sovereignty over the Western Sahara. So why did the US sign this proclamation, and what is the impact it is going to have on this region? Why is Morocco claiming rights over Western Sahara? We shall discuss all these in this lecture. So first, before we move into trying to understand what exactly the conflict is, let's know where is the region, where is the location, who are the neighbors of Western Sahara, what exactly the conflict is. So this is the African continent, and this is the Sahara Desert. This region which is marked in red is the Western Sahara region. So the neighboring countries of Western Sahara are Morocco, Algeria and Mauritania. So as we all know, during the 19th century, most of the African countries were colonized by the European powers. So Morocco was a colony of France and Western Sahara was a colony of Spain. So what is so unique about this Western Sahara that the other countries are claiming their rights over this region? Western Sahara is a region which is very rich in phosphorus. It is said that around 74% of the world's phosphorus reserves are concentrated in this Western Sahara region. In addition to that, it also has large number of offshore oil reserves and many fishing grounds as well. So this is the reason why Western Sahara is so important. So this is a close-up of the map, and here is a timeline of the events which happened. So if we have to understand what exactly the conflict is, we will have to understand what happened in this region since a long time. So that is why I have given this timeline. First, for the very first time in 1884, this region of Western Sahara came under the control of Spain, that is, it came under the Spanish control. So here you can see this is Morocco, this is Mauritania, this is Algeria. Here the region which is in green color, this is the map which is present now, that is the present division of Western Sahara between Morocco and the Polisario Front. Okay. So the region which is marked in green color over here, this is the territory which has been controlled by Morocco presently, and the region over here in purple color, this is the territory controlled by the Polisario Front. Shortly I will be explaining what is the Polisario Front. Okay. So this is not the map which was present earlier, this is the present map. This is Morocco, this is the neighboring countries Morocco, Mauritania and Algeria. And here you can also see this small red color circle, this is the refugee camps. So during several years of war, what happened was people from this Western Sahara region fled to the neighboring country Algeria and took refuge over there. So this is the place where they are concentrated. This is the region of refugee camps. Okay. So for the very first time in 1884, this region of Western Sahara came under the control of Spain, and as I already told you, Morocco was under the control of France, that is, it was a French colony and Western Sahara was a Spanish colony. Next, in 1934, this province of Western Sahara was renamed as Spanish Sahara. So initially they took over in 1884, and by the time of 1934 they renamed this region as Spanish Sahara. And then in 1956 Morocco got independence from France. Okay. In 1956 Morocco got independence from France and it started claiming its rights over Western Sahara. So in 1957, that is immediately after Morocco got independence from France, it started claiming its rights over Western Sahara region. And then in 1970s what happened was there was increasing pressure both internationally as well as locally on Spain to withdraw from its colonies in Africa. So, because of this increasing pressure, there was also a movement which was started in this Western Sahara region. So, on one hand there was increasing pressure on Spain to decolonize its colonies, and during the same time in 1970s a guerrilla movement was also started by the Polisario Front. So, this Polisario Front, what is it? I already told you, I will be explaining now. So, there is a tribal group called as Sahrawi, the Sahrawi ethnic group. These group of people are the original inhabitants of the Western Sahara region. They formed an insurgency group against the Spanish colonial rulers. Okay, that group which the people formed was called as Polisario Front. So, why do they call it Polisario Front? See, it was called the Popular Front for the Liberation of Ceuta el Hamra and Rio de Oro, known as the Polisario Front. So, here you can see these two names, Ceuta el Hamra and Rio de Oro. These two were the provinces of Spain, that is the Spanish provinces in Western Sahara. So, based on these names, they took the starting letters of these and they formed a name called as Polisario Front. Okay. So, now did you understand what is the meaning of Polisario Front? They were a ethnic tribal group in the Western Sahara region called as the Sahrawi ethnic group. It is these people who started forming an insurgency group against the Spanish rule. This insurgency group was backed by or supported by Libya and Algeria. So, this group came to be known as the Polisario Front. Okay. So, now we shall get back to the timeline. So, here so in 1973 a guerrilla movement was started by the Polisario Front. Then what happened in 1974? During 1974, the United Nations General Assembly asked the International Court of Justice to check if there are any legal ties that existed between Western Sahara, Morocco and Mauritania before Spain took over this region. That is, before Spain colonized this region, was there any legal ties that existed between Morocco, Western Sahara and Mauritania? Because these two countries were now claiming rights over Western Sahara. So, the United Nations General Assembly asked the International Court of Justice to see if there are any legal ties which existed prior to the colonization of the Spain. So, the International Court of Justice looked into this issue and they came up with two conclusions. First one was, they said there are no such legal ties which existed between these three countries before it became a colony of the Spain. The second one, what it said was, it said that the rights of the people, that is the native people over here, their right to self-determination should be looked into. That is, the International Court of Justice endorsed the General Assembly resolution of 1541 that affirmed the right to self-determination. Okay. So, this is what happened in 1974. Then during 1975, the Madrid Accord was signed with Morocco and Mauritania. So, in 1975, the Spain signed a Madrid Accord with Morocco and Mauritania. So, according to this accord, Spain will decolonize or it will leave Western Sahara on February 28, 1976. But until then, it will be taking over the administration of this region by one Spanish Governor General along with the help of one Deputy General from Morocco and one Deputy General from Mauritania. Okay. This is what the Madrid Accord says, that the Spain will withdraw from Western Sahara on February 28, 1976, and until then the rule of this region or the administration of this region will be done by one Governor General of Spain and two Deputy Generals, one Deputy General from Morocco and one Deputy General from Mauritania. Okay. So, in 1976 on February 28, the Spain was supposed to withdraw. What happened during 1974, that is after the declaration of the International Court of Justice that there are no legal ties, However, the International Court of Justice also gave a statement that there were few tribal people in Western Sahara who were loyal to the Moroccan king. Okay. So, when the United Nations General Assembly asked the International Court of Justice to see if there are any legal ties between these three countries, the International Court of Justice said that there are no legal ties as such, but there were few leaders from Western Sahara region who were loyal to the Moroccan king. So, Morocco took this in their favor and they started moving their troops towards Western Sahara from the northern side. At the same time, what happened? Mauritania started moving its troops into Western Sahara from the southern end. So, Moroccan troops were advancing from the northern side, Mauritania troops were advancing from the southern side, and by 1976 already Moroccan troops had occupied 3/4 of Western Sahara. Okay. That is even before the withdrawal of the Spain in 1976, Moroccan troops had already advanced 3/4 and Mauritanian troops had already advanced 1/3 of the 1/4 of the region. Okay. So, in 1976 on February 28, the Spain was supposed to withdraw. Okay. So, they even withdrew. So, by then actually they had Moroccan troops had moved 3/4 and Mauritania troops had moved 1/4, and accordingly the Western Sahara region was partitioned between these two countries, that is Morocco and Mauritania. So, 3/4 of the region of Western Sahara went to Morocco and 1/4 of it went to Mauritania. Okay. So, in 1976 February 28, the Spain withdrew, and at the same time, even though International Court of Justice endorsed the United Nations resolution that there should be a right to self-determination for the Sahrawi group over there, despite all this, the Spain decided to divide this Western Sahara between the Morocco and Mauritania. So, accordingly 3/4 of Western Sahara went to Morocco and 1/4 of it went to Mauritania. Then one day, even before the withdrawal of the Spain, that is I told you Spain withdrew on February 28, 1976, one day prior to that, that is on February 27, 1976, the Polisario Front occupied over here and they declared Sadr, that is Sahrawi Arab Democratic Republic. Okay. So, one day prior to the withdrawal of the Spain, the Polisario Front declared Sadr over here, that is their rule over here. What do we mean by Sadr? Sahrawi Arab Democratic Republic. So, even before the Spain could withdraw, they came and they declared their own republic in this region. Next, after this, during 1979, Mauritania signed a peace agreement with the Polisario Front and they withdrew from this region. So, I told you already 1/4 of it was occupied by Mauritania. So, what they did was they signed a peace agreement with the Polisario Front and they withdrew from this region. So, once they withdrew, Moroccan troops further advanced to that region also, and by the time of 1991 they had already occupied around 80% of Western Sahara. Okay. So, by the time of 1991 Western Sahara Morocco had occupied almost 80% of Western Sahara. So, in 1991 the United Nations declared a ceasefire and they also called for a referendum. In 1991 the United Nations declared ceasefire and it also suggested a referendum which was agreed to by Morocco. During this course of war, several people from Western Sahara, that is the Sahrawi people, had fled to the neighboring country Algeria and had taken refuge in that region. So, it is also said that Sadr operates from this region. In 2001, a new monarch came to power. The King Mohammed VI came to power in Morocco and he refused to conduct the referendum. Instead, he encouraged more, that is tens of thousands of people from Morocco to go and settle in Western Sahara so that it will sharply change the demographic balance. So, why do they do that? So, in case in future even if referendum is conducted, then the referendum result will be in support or in favor of Morocco. So, that is the reason. So, what King Mohammed VI did was, he did not agree for the referendum. At the same time, he encouraged tens of thousands of people to relocate to Western Sahara and settle there, and he also promised wide-ranging autonomy for the Polisario Front. However, the Polisario Front did not agree for the autonomy, and they only wanted their right to self-determination. That is, they were interested only in the referendum. So, this Moroccan government also Morocco also constructed a sand wall, a huge sand wall on the territory which it had occupied. That sand wall is called as berm. This is a picture of the sand wall. You can see this sand wall which has been constructed. So, what impact of US decision? Recently, the US President Donald Trump signed a proclamation recognizing the Moroccan sovereignty over Western Sahara. So, why did he do this? Recently, Morocco signed a peace treaty with Israel. So, as a reciprocation, to reciprocate for that, the US government gave this proclamation recognizing the Moroccan sovereignty over Western Sahara. So, what are the implications this can have in this region? First and foremost, the Sadr is an organization which has been recognized by more than around 70 countries, and it is also recognized by the African Union. However, Sadr has not been recognized by the United Nations or any of the major parts of the world. So, now the recognition of US, that is the US recognizing Moroccan sovereignty of Western Sahara, is a huge success or a huge victory for Morocco. So, this can however increase destability in the Western African region. So, the Polisario Front is still continuing for the referendum, and there will be more and more fights and conflict which is happening over here, and it will have chances of destabilizing the Western African region. And this might even harm the US relationships with Algeria, because Algeria is backing the Polisario Front. It might be difficult for relations between US and Algeria. Thank you.